The Invisible Chains. A week before his death, Miyamoto Musashi, the greatest swordsman Japan ever produced, wrote 21 rules for living. Not rules for battle, not techniques of the sword, but rules for the soul. And among them, one line echoed louder than the rest. Do not form attachments. Most people misunderstand this rule. They think it means becoming cold, distant, emotionless. But Musashi meant something deeper. He meant freedom from the invisible chains that bind the mind, the need to be liked, the fear of rejection, the addiction to approval. This is the story of Leo. 24 years old, smart, kind, talented, and completely trapped. Leo grew up in a modest home. His father drove a taxi. His mother worked in a small tailoring shop. They were honest people who believed in hard work, and Leo loved them deeply. He wanted to give them a better life someday. A life without worry, without counting every rupee, without fear of sickness or old age. But even with big dreams, Leo felt stuck, not because he lacked ability, but because he lacked freedom. Every day followed the same pattern. Office in the morning, then endless messages in the evening. Leo, come hang out. Leo, don't be boring. Leo, you're coming, right? And Leo always said yes, not because he wanted to, but because he was afraid to say no. Afraid of losing friends, afraid of being alone, afraid of not being liked. He belonged to two kinds of people. One group lived comfortably, rich parents, easy futures, no pressure. Leo tried to keep up, spending money he didn't have, pretending he was fine. The other group struggled like him, but had no ambition. They believed life was just about surviving today and forgetting tomorrow. Leo stood in the middle, pulled in every direction, belonging nowhere, and deep inside he felt exhausted, not from work, but from being everyone's version of who he should be. Chapter 2. The Book That Waited. One evening, tired of feeling useless, Leo decided to change at least one day of his life. He went to the old city library. Quiet, dusty, forgotten by most people, but perfect for someone who wanted silence. He opened a course he had bought months ago, a business skills program. He had always promised himself he would start tomorrow. 10 minutes later, his phone was in his hand, scrolling, refreshing, escaping. Then he noticed something strange. On the table beside him lay a small book. Black cover, dull pages, golden letters faded with time. Dokkodo, the way of walking alone. Leo picked it up, opened the first page. Do not depend on others. Do not seek pleasure for its own sake. Do not cling to life. Each sentence felt like a strike to the chest. As he was reading, a soft voice interrupted him. That book is dangerous, in a good way. Leo looked up. A young woman stood there, calm eyes, simple clothes, quiet confidence. I'm sorry, Leo said, handing her the book. I thought someone forgot it. She smiled. Maybe you were meant to find it. Her name was Maya. They talked about Musashi, about detachment, about living without begging the world for approval. Leo admitted something he had never said out loud. I feel like I live for everyone else, but not for myself. Maya nodded. That's exactly the prison Musashi warned about. Before leaving, she placed the book in his hands. Keep it for a while. I think it's calling you. Chapter 3. The first. No Leo began reading every night, slowly, carefully. The words were harsh but honest. The first rule he tried to apply was simple, but terrifying. He started saying no, not with excuses, not with long explanations, just no. No, I can't come today. No, I'm busy working on something important. No, not this time. At first, people laughed. Then they questioned him. Then some stopped calling. And something strange happened. Leo felt lighter. For the first time, he wasn't living on automatic mode. He had time, energy, focus. He finally began building the online service he had dreamed about, helping small businesses with digital systems. He studied every night, practiced every day. And while others were drinking and wasting weekends, Leo was building a future. Not loudly, not dramatically, but steadily. Chapter 4. Wisdom at a small table. Maya invited Leo to meet her grandfather one evening, an old man with calm eyes and a straight back. His name was Kenji. After dinner, Kenji poured tea and asked gently, "You are reading Dokkodo, aren't you?" Leo nodded. "But I don't understand how to live without attachment. Doesn't that make you lonely?" Kenji smiled. "Lonely is when you live surrounded by people who don't know the real you." Then he said something Leo would never forget. "When you depend on others to feel valuable, you give them control over your soul." Maya added softly, "Detachment doesn't mean not loving. It means loving without disappearing." Kenji leaned forward. "The man who fears being alone will accept any company. And that is the fastest way to destroy yourself." That night, Leo realized something painful. He had been surrounded by people, but he had never truly been himself with anyone. Chapter 5. The Quiet Transformation. Months passed. Leo's life changed, not suddenly, but deeply. He stopped chasing approval, stopped answering every message instantly, stopped apologizing for choosing himself. Some people vanished, some stayed. The ones who stayed respected him more. His small business grew, first client, then second, then referrals. Within a year, Leo left his job. He helped his parents, paid debts, improved their home, not out of pressure, but from love. And with Maya, something beautiful happened. They were together, but not dependent. They supported each other, but didn't cling. They chose each other every day. One evening, standing in the same library where everything began, Leo held Maya's hands. "I don't need you to complete me," he said. "I am whole, and I choose to walk beside you." She smiled through tears. "That's the only kind of love worth having." Chapter 6. The final lesson. Years later, Leo often returned to Musashi's words. "Do not get attached, not even to life." He finally understood. Musashi was not teaching coldness. He was teaching courage. The courage to live without fear. The courage to lose without breaking. The courage to love without chains. Leo built a life he chose, not one designed by fear, not one controlled by approval, but one guided by purpose. And it all started with a forgotten book, waiting on a silent table, for someone brave enough to read it. So now the same question remains for you. What are you attached to? Whose approval are you chasing? What fear is silently controlling your life? Because freedom does not begin when you gain more. Freedom begins when you let go. If this story touched you, remember Musashi's hardest rule. Live without attachment, not because you don't care, but because you care enough not to lose yourself. Chapter 7. The Cost of Freedom. Freedom always has a price, not in money, but in courage. After Leo transformed his life, many people believed his struggles were over. From the outside, everything looked perfect. A growing business, peace at home, a healthy relationship with Maya, respect from his parents. But what no one talks about is this truth. When you stop living for others, the world doesn't always applaud. Sometimes it fights back. As Leo became more confident, he began to notice resistance. Old friends mocked him. "You've changed. You think you're better than us now? You used to be fun." He smiled politely, but inside those words hurt more than he expected. Not because they were true, but because once they mattered to him. Now they didn't, and that change made people uncomfortable. Chapter 8. The Test of Attachment. One evening, Leo received a call from an old friend, Daniel. Daniel had always been there, in parties, in jokes, in trouble, but never in growth. "Leo, I need your help," Daniel said. "I'm starting something big. I just need you to invest a little." Leo asked for details. There were none. No plan, no structure, only emotion. "Bro, trust me. You're my friend." Leo stayed silent. Years ago, he would have said yes without thinking, out of loyalty, out of fear of losing the friendship. But now, he heard Musashi's voice in his mind. Do not depend on others. Do not let emotion replace reason. "I can't," Leo finally said. "I care about you, but I won't put my future at risk." Daniel exploded. "So that's it? You've become selfish." Leo hung up the phone, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time. Guilt. That night, he couldn't sleep. Maya noticed. "You did the right thing," she said gently. But right choices still hurt. Leo understood something important. Detachment doesn't remove pain. It gives pain meaning. Chapter 9. The Silent Fear. A year later, Leo's company faced its first real crisis. A major client backed out, cash flow dropped, pressure returned. For the first time since his transformation, fear knocked again. What if everything falls apart? What if I made a mistake leaving my job? What if independence was an illusion? That night, Leo sat alone in his office, staring at the city lights. He opened Dokkodo again. One line stood out: think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world. Leo realized something powerful. He had replaced one attachment with another. Before, he was attached to people's approval. Now, he was attached to success. Different chains, same prison. He closed the book and whispered to himself, I am not my company. I am not my income. I am not my achievements. For the first time, he felt calm again. Chapter 10. The Storm. 2 months later, the worst happened. The company lost 2 more clients. Revenue dropped sharply. Employees depended on him. Leo had to make a painful decision. He reduced the team. That night, he sat in his car for a long time, staring at nothing. He felt like he had failed. Maya held his hand later that evening. You're not failing, she said. You're learning what detachment really means. Leo looked at her. She continued, You're not detached from effort. You're detached from ego. You do what must be done without destroying yourself. That night, Leo understood Musashi on a deeper level. Detachment is not escape. It is strength without drama, pain without collapse, loss without identity crisis. Chapter 11. The Unexpected Return. One afternoon, Leo received an unexpected email from Daniel, the same friend who had called him selfish. The message was short. You were right. I wasn't ready. I was just afraid to admit it. I'm sorry. Leo stared at the screen for a long time. Years ago, he would have rushed to fix everything, to save the friendship, to prove his loyalty. Now, he replied simply, I wish you the best, truly. No bitterness, no attachment, no need to rebuild what no longer fit. And for the first time, Leo felt something rare, peace without explanation. Chapter 12. The Deeper Bond. As time passed, Leo and Maya's relationship deepened, not through dependency, but through choice. They supported each other's dreams. They respected each other's solitude. They never demanded completeness from the other. One evening, while walking by the river, Maya asked, Do you ever feel afraid of losing me? Leo thought carefully. Yes, he said, but I don't let that fear control me. Maya smiled. That's love without chains. Chapter 13. The Return to the Library. 5 years after finding the book, Leo returned to the same library. Same silence, same wooden tables, different man. He placed a copy of Dokkodo on the table. Inside, he wrote, To the one who finds this, freedom begins when you stop begging the world to love you. Walk your own path, even if you walk alone. He left without looking back. Chapter 14. The Final Truth Years. Later, Leo often shared one lesson with young people who asked for advice. You don't suffer because you lack talent. You suffer because you are attached to approval. And he would repeat Musashi's hidden truth. The man who fears loss becomes a slave. The man who accepts loss becomes free. Chapter 15. The Quiet Power. Years passed. Leo was no longer the young man who needed permission to live. He was no longer the boy who feared being alone. He had become something rare, a man at peace with himself. But true transformation is never loud. It does not announce itself. It shows in silence, in choices, in how someone stands when the world shakes. Leo's company stabilized again, not explosively, not dramatically, but steadily, the way real success grows. He worked less, lived more. He no longer chased every opportunity. He chose only what aligned with his values. And people noticed something different about him. He was calm in chaos, steady in loss, humble in victory, not because life had become easy, but because he was no longer attached to outcomes. Chapter 16. The Question of Legacy. One evening, Maya asked him something unexpected. If you died tomorrow, what would you want people to remember about you? Leo didn't answer immediately. He walked to the window and looked at the city lights. Finally, he said, I don't want to be remembered. I want to have lived. Maya smiled softly. That sounds like Musashi. Leo nodded. Musashi didn't write Dokkodo to be famous. He wrote it because he was free. That night, Leo realized something deep. Most people live to leave a mark. Few live to leave fear behind. And the second is far more powerful. Captain Sutin. The student one afternoon, a young man named Ethan visited Leo's office. 21 years old, lost, confused, desperate for direction. "I don't know who I am," Ethan said. "I change for everyone. My parents, my friends, my girlfriend. I'm tired." Leo listened silently. Then he handed Ethan a book. Dokkodo. Ethan looked at it. "What is this?" Leo replied, "It's not a guide for success. It's a guide for freedom." Ethan frowned. "I don't want to be alone." Leo smiled gently. "Neither did I, until I learned the difference between loneliness and independence." And in that moment, Leo understood something beautiful. The cycle continued, not as teaching, not as preaching, but as presence. Chapter 18, the final test. Life always gives one last test. Years later, Leo's father fell seriously ill. Hospitals, bills, uncertainty. Old fears returned. Not of money, not of failure, but of loss. Leo sat beside his father's bed one night. For the first time in years, tears came. Maya held him close. "This hurts," Leo said quietly, "and I can't detach from this." Maya shook her head gently. "Detachment doesn't mean you don't feel pain. It means pain doesn't destroy who you are." Leo stayed awake all night beside his father, and in that moment, he understood Musashi better than ever. Detachment is not absence of love. It is love without fear. Chapter 19. The letter. After his father recovered, Leo wrote something. Not for the world, not for fame, but for himself, a letter. He wrote, "I used to live afraid of losing people. Now I live grateful for every moment I have with them. I no longer cling. I no longer beg. I no longer chase. I walk." He folded the letter and placed it inside his copy of Dokkodo. A reminder, for the day fear might return. Titon, the meaning of walking alone. On his 40th birthday, Leo stood on a hill at sunrise. Maya beside him, peace around him, silence within him. He remembered the title of the book, The Way of Walking Alone. And finally, he understood. Walking alone doesn't mean isolation. It means walking without depending on applause, without needing validation, without fearing judgment. It means walking with your own compass. Chapter 21. The final truth. Years later, when people asked Leo what changed his life, he never mentioned business. He never mentioned money. He never mentioned success. He always said one thing. "I stopped living to be accepted and started living to be honest." And that honesty changed everything. Now the story ends, but the lesson does not. Musashi wrote his rules knowing death was near. Not with sadness, not with regret, but with clarity. Because only when you stop clinging to life do you start living fully. So now the same question comes to you. If you had 1 week left, what would you stop pretending about? Who would you stop trying to impress? What dream would you finally choose? Because the greatest tragedy is not death. The greatest tragedy is living a life that was never truly yours. Detachment is not coldness, it is courage. Courage to be misunderstood. Courage to be alone sometimes. Courage to live honestly. And when you live honestly, you don't need chains. You don't need approval. You don't need permission. You only need one thing: the strength to walk your own path, even when no one walks with you. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, share, and comment.